What's up? Welcome to One Question with me, Mr. Sharp. Today on the show, author Henry Lien. You ready? Let's go. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are looking for videos to get kids excited about reading and writing, and you're looking for great book recommendations, click that subscribe button down below. If you click that bell, you will get an email every time I post a new video. All right, subscribe. I am so excited to have the author of Pea Sprout Chen, Henry Lien, on the show today. I was dying to know, how does someone go from being a baby in Taiwan to an author in Hollywood, California? So I asked Henry to share his life story. Henry, how did you go from that baby in Taiwan to the author in Hollywood you are today?
Hi, I'm Henry Lien, and those guys back there are my dinosaurs, Iwi and Rocket, also known as the Prehistorics. So you ask how I went from being a child in Taiwan to being an author in Hollywood, California. The answer is, I took the scenic route. I was born in Taiwan in 1970. Back then, Taiwan was a country with one foot in the 20th century and another foot in a much more antiquated world. One of my grandmothers had bound feet. My other grandmother had been sold into slavery as a child. So my roots were in a world that was vastly different from my current one. When I was young, my family emigrated to the US. Throughout school, I didn't have much awareness of being an outsider as an immigrant because I was always the smartest kid in class, with the most initiative and the most natural leadership. But then I applied and got a scholarship to a prestigious boarding school in New Hampshire called St. Paul's School. Going to St. Paul's was not like going to another country. It was like going to another planet. It was a hard, lonely experience at first. The school was very wealthy and very conservative, and I got bullied about as much as you would think an openly gay, flamboyant, Asian kid with dyed orange hair and an earring on scholarship would be at such a place. On top of that, I was a transfer student coming into the 11th grade. Eventually, I fell in with a crowd of the neatest, coolest, kindest, most cultured, most interesting kids I could hope to meet. One of whom ended up becoming well-known writer Janice Y.K. Lee. The group chemistry that we had together was magical. It was like being at Hogwarts. I drew upon my boarding school experiences for my first novel, Pea Sprout Chen, Future Legend of Skate and Sword, which is really just thickly veiled autobiography in some ways. After St. Paul's, I went to Brown, where I studied international relations, and then UCLA School of Law. I practiced as an attorney for 10 years, and that was interesting because you learn a lot about human nature as an attorney. People are often coming to you at the greatest point of crisis in their lives. And then I met my former partner. The good news is that when we met, we both knew that we had waited our whole lives to meet each other. The bad news is that he had cancer. So we knew that the time we had together might be limited, and we had to make the most of it. 7 months after we met, he started to become very sick, and it became clear that he was not going to make it. I refused to accept this. I am a skeptical, scientifically minded, unsuperstitious person. Nonetheless, I managed to devise a logical, working method for the two of us to continue communicating even after he died. How that method worked and what happened after he died is a longer story than we have time for here, but it's on my website, henrylien.com, if anyone's interested in reading. What I learned from this experience, though, is that imagination is stronger than anything, even the laws of death. I'd always believed that on some level as a science fiction and fantasy fan, but now those fictions were becoming my reality. It was around this time that I started to come up with the idea for the world of Pearl, in which P. Sprout Chen takes place, and came up with the idea for Wu Liu, the invented art form that combines kung fu with figure skating that figures prominently in the book. But it took me a while to do anything about it. After my partner died, I took over the art gallery that he founded as his legacy. And I loved being an art dealer. But years passed, and finally at the age of 42, I snapped and came out openly as an aspiring science fiction and fantasy writer. I did research about how to get a foothold in the field and learned about a selective workshop in Seattle called Clarion West. I put together a writing sample and applied, and the writing sample ended up becoming the first chapters of P. Sprout Chen. Despite some stiff competition, I got in. And Clarion West changed my life. I got to live and study with the best writers in the field. George R.R. Martin, Kelly Link, Chuck Palahniuk were among my instructors, and they were extremely enthusiastic and supportive about the stories that would become the foundation for P. Sprout Chen. I learned to work ludicrously hard at Clarion West. I was a middle-aged man with a receding hairline. I didn't have a day to waste because half of my life was already behind me. So I wrote 6 stories and novelettes during those 6 weeks. All of them got published in top magazines, and a couple were nominated for Nebula Awards. And then I wrote my first novel, P. Sprout Chen, Future Legend of Skate and Sword. I poured all my experiences into it. Living as a young child in Taiwan, straddling centuries, coming to America, my boarding school highs and lows, working in law and art, and using my imagination to defy destiny when it was trying to take away someone I loved. All those things went into this novel. I found the most perfect agent possible for me, the mighty Tina Dubois Wexler at ICM, and she sold the P. Sprout Chen series to my editor, the sagacious Tiffany Liao at Holt Macmillan. They changed my life as well, along with everybody else on Team P. Sprout at ICM, Macmillan, and Curtis Brown UK. It all happened very quickly, but it was also decades in the making. So now here I find myself working as a children's fantasy author in Hollywood, California. It was a long time coming, but I wouldn't have had the maturity or the material to write the book that I wrote back when I was 25. The decades of life experience that I have now have made my writing infinitely richer. A life unexamined is not worth living, but a life unlived is not worth examining. It's particularly fitting that I'm a fantasy writer living in Hollywood, because this is a city that's all about fantasy. I live 2 subway stops from Hogsmeade Village at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, so I can practically snap my fingers and be at the 3 Broomsticks, which I use as my writing cafe when I need a break from the prehysterics. Or I can snap my fingers again and work on my novels in a Suzhou garden paradise. Writing fantasy, living in Hollywood, and my life experiences have taught me that imagination is stronger than anything. Reality, even the reality of death, is porous and flexible and no match for imagination. The world is full of possibilities if you decide it's going to be. So the question I'd like to ask your viewers is either of 2 questions. What is the greatest compliment anyone's ever paid you? Or what is the greatest compliment you wish someone would pay you? I'd love to hear the answers, but I don't want to know which question you're answering. Because in my experience, they're ultimately the same thing, if you decide they're going to be. All right, I've gone on for long enough here, so now it's your turn. Go!
Friends, thank you so much for watching. Henry, amazing story. I cannot wait to see what you do in this world of children's literature. We are so lucky to have you. Friends, be sure to answer Henry's question in the comments below. What is the best compliment you've ever received, or what compliment do you want to receive? And don't tell Henry which one you're picking for me. You're a great teacher, Mr. Sharp. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and happy reading.